Hey there guys and gals, welcome back to another bite-sized review. Today we'll be taking a look at a very awesome film, and this review is kind of late. I apologize for that, but this is Spider-Man No Way Home. This is the final installment of Phase 3, and this is also the final installment in the Home trilogy. This was directed by John Watts, like the other two, follows straight up from Far From Home, and it's about 2 hours and 37 minutes. So yeah, it's not a short one, but it is very worth your time, especially if you're a Spider-Man fan like me. Um, there will be spoilers in this video. In fact, all the videos that I cover this, or all the videos that I do featuring this movie will be spoiler heavy because there's no way around it. And I've given you enough time to see the movie by now. So this is a outstanding film. This came out in 2021, and we were all very hyped for it. Mostly because of the trailers, and we all knew it was going to be great. We didn't know it was going to be legendary, though. So this is probably the best Tom Holland performance of all of the films that he's been in. And yeah, the cat's out of the bag. Maguire and Garfield show up. Yes, I'll talk about that later. In fact, I'll probably save them for their own videos because I want to explore their development in this film specifically. But the story is pretty simple. Mysterio, of course, was in Far From Home, and he revealed Peter Parker's true identity as the Spider-Man of the MCU in Far From Home. And so that is a big problem for this Peter, Tom Holland's version. So now his identity is revealed and everyone knows who he is. So he has to get some help. He's basically trying to have a fresh start. He's trying to go to MIT to attend college. And so he needs to have his identity be, well, unrevealed, shall we say. And with many of the Marvel characters gone, many of the heroes are actually away from New York. So the Avengers are unavailable. Captain Marvel's gone. Thor is gone. Um, Doctor Strange is actually one of the few heroes still on New York that can actually help with this. So Peter goes to him for help, and because he's the master of the mystic arts, he's the best magician in the city. And so Peter goes to Doctor Strange for help, and after some reluctance, Strange agrees to make a spell to make everyone forget that he is Spider-Man. And so they go through this whole ordeal, but Peter ends up, wanting MJ to not forget him and not, have Ned not forget him and his aunt, and he starts tampering with the spell, and the spell goes completely bonkers, and that in turn breaks the entire universe. And so now the entire multiverse is opened. So now it opens the door for all these other characters to start showing up, and all these villains start showing up, including Electro. You've got the Sandman, the Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and the Lizard. And they are all after Spider-Man, because why not? Spider-Man is never safe. And so that brings all those villains into the city. And so now it's up to both Doctor Strange and Spider-Man to protect the city. And they're going to need help, of course. So that's great. And it's what I think is really cool is that it's somehow they made this really like a celebration of Spider-Man in general. There's references to the original comics. There's references to the other movies. There's references to the songs and the costumes and all the different characters. And yet it's all together. Like previous Spider-Man movies have not been connected to the larger Marvel universe. But what this movie does so well is now the Maguire trilogy is now a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now the Garfield movies are as well. So it brings all of the Spider-Man movies together. And it's just so great because they weren't connected before, and now they're all part of the same world, which as a kid, I always wanted that. Tobey Maguire is my favorite version of Spider-Man, but one of the problems with his movies was they were not connected to the Avengers, to Thor, to Daredevil. It was all just one single universe. There was no other heroes. But now we've got all these other characters now, and now, um, of course, Maguire is back, and so is Garfield, and they're like the same people, the same characters that you remember from back all those years ago. And what I love is that not only do we have Tom Holland's Spider-Man, of course, but now we have the original Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, and now we have Andrew Garfield, who's kind of like the weird middle child of the Spider-Man series. His amazing version. They're all together. It's just so cool. Like it's like they care to bring the other versions back, which is great. And I also like the fact that Doctor Strange is here. It makes sense that he would be the one to do the spell because he watches over the city and he's the only one with no like story really. At least not at this point. He gets one after this movie, but it makes sense that he was the one that was brought back to uh try to get Peter's identity unrevealed, but of course that failed. Um, Still, it was a cool effort. There were so many things right with this film. Like the cool mirror dimension fight, that was amazing. You've got Doc Ock fighting a different Peter Parker on the bridge. That is awesome. You've got Willem Dafoe back as the Green Goblin. Every scene he's in is fantastic. We've got uh, Holland's Peter finding out who the Sandman or fighting the Sandman and Electro in this awesome like sandy area. That was awesome. This forest kind of area. That was awesome. Um and like I love the fact that all the villains are just so confused like they're like which Peter? You're not the right Peter. You're not my Peter. And so like it's fun to see all these different villains from these different universes interacting with this current Spider-Man. It's just so cool. Because if you, I will say, probably the biggest weakness of this movie is if you don't know the Amazing Spider-Man movies, or if you've never seen the Sam Raimi trilogy, then uh, the movie kind of loses a bit of the steam. You have to kind of be familiar with the previous Spider-Man to maybe get the whole treatment, but that's really the only complaint I have. Like, there is nothing wrong with this film. I have no real complaints other than that. Um, you don't need to be familiar with the previous ones, of course not, but it helps tremendously if you kept up with Spider-Man like I have for these many years. All the different versions, so there's so many. Benedict Cumberbatch is fantastic as Doctor Strange. He doesn't get a ton to do necessarily, but he does help with the spell, and it's his powers that bring the other characters in here. So that's pretty cool. And what's fitting is that in Spider-Man 2, there was a reference to Doctor Strange, which kind of brings it all full circle, right? So that was cool. Tom Holland, this is his best performance as Peter and Spidey. Absolutely. Like the emotion is there, the heart is there, and I love his dynamic with the other Spider-Man. It's so natural. Like you can tell that Toby's the old wise, you know, uh legend, and then you've got Andrew, who is the kind of the darker, more introverted Spidey. And then you've got Holland, who is the youngest and the least experienced, but also the most energetic. So you put them all together, and it's just brilliant. It's just brilliant. And what I loved was that Toby and Andrew weren't just shoved in there for some like lame cameo. They're actual characters, and they're the same versions that you remember. So that was great. And also the villains. The villains are all really well done, with the exception of the lizard. I feel like the lizard was the least developed, probably because he was not the most interesting in the Amazing Spider-Man to begin with. That movie was pretty good, but him as a villain, he was just okay. He was mediocre, but Sandman is awesome. And what was cool about him was he's like permanently sand, which is cool. I really like that. And he had some great interactions with Holland. And Willem Dafoe is iconic again. Somehow he's even more iconic here than he was in the first Spider-Man. So that was amazing. And it was cool to see him like the scared Norman Osborn, and then the Green Goblin was just absolutely sadistic, which was perfect for him. So that was great. Um, he doesn't wear his costume from the first movie too much. He kind of just gets rid of it and he wears a different suit. I like that. I wasn't crazy on it at first, but I got used to it, so I like that. Um, Dr. Octopus, Alfred Molina is perfect once again. He's the same version from Spider-Man 2. What was cool was he was kind of a villain, but he was kind of a hero. Of course, all the villains get cured at the end and they get sent back to their worlds. But what's cool about Doc Ock is you never really know if he was like a genuine like hero or if he was like still the villain. So that was cool. I really liked that. And I was a bit upset that Mysterio didn't show up. They actually were planning to have him in this movie fight Doctor Strange, but somehow that got cut. So technically, this is not the Sinister Six. This is the Sinister Five. So, yeah, that was a little bit disappointing. But every scene in this film works. I was not bored at all with anything with this movie. I will say it does get a little bit slow at the beginning, but it starts to pick up speed once the other two Spider-Men show up. Then it gets really going. Um, yeah, it was great. I did want to talk about one of the villains. Um, we do have Electro. He was probably the most different villain of the returning villains. He was not blue. He was not CGI heavy. He was mostly just Jamie Foxx, which is fine because it's different from the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is a train wreck. But he was decent as Electro. Just the appearance of him was weird. But Electro stole the show. He was probably the best villain in this movie, and I was not expecting to say that after walking out of it. But he was probably the best villain. I'll say. He had some great lines, including one where he thought Andrew's Spider-Man would be black. That really worked. That was funny. There were so many joke lines, like Dr. Octopus' name gets made fun of. Toby makes a crack about his back, and Andrew's like so disappointed. He wants to fight a villain that's cool. So that was that was cool. And I think my favorite scene is the one on the Statue of Liberty where all the Spider-Men they're just hanging out. They're just talking about their various like adventures, and Toby and Andrew are just talking about the villains that they fought. And Holland's like, yeah, I fought this guy in space. He was purple and alien. And then Toby's like, I fought this weird black goo alien once. And then Andrew's like, I fought this Russian guy in a suit. And that was the extent of his villain fighting. So I love that. Andrew Garfield was amazing this time around. This is his best performance, I feel like, as Spider-Man and as Peter. They actually gave him some solid dialogue, some cool like scenes with the other two, and you can tell he got a little bit darker in his universe after Gwen died. So that was interesting, and also Toby got some great lines. And when he came back, or when he appeared, before the final battle, Andrew's like, "Are you gonna go to battle dressed as a cool youth pastor?" And that was hilarious. I will say, I really wish that we got to see Toby and Andrew, well, mostly Toby. I wish we got to see him in his mask more. That was a little bit disappointing. Like, I don't know. That's just me. Because they did change the suit slightly for this one. Like, overall, I can't find anything wrong with this. The action was fantastic. Absolutely awesome. The action was amazing. What I love is that Marvel and Sony agreed both to do this, and they combined their efforts. They weren't bickering. They were two companies working together, just like the three Spider-Man were working together. So that was awesome. It was iconic to see Toby show up. Well, Andrew showed up, then Toby. Then they all started talking. It was awesome. I love the references, especially the callbacks, the, you know, just little jokey lines. It just was great. As someone who's been keeping track of Spider-Man for so long, it was really like rewarding and just like really enjoyable to see all of them together. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just a wonderful movie. I did see this in the theater with some people, with a lot of people, and so that really helped. And what was cool was at some different points, like when the villains showed up, and then when the Spider-Man showed up, and like the fight scenes and stuff, everyone was like cheering and laughing and crying, and like that is what a movie experience should be. Everyone coming together for this one adventure, which I think is great. The music was phenomenal. The direction was phenomenal. Also, I did forget to mention Matt Murdock's cameo. Charlie Cox is in it. Yep, he's not in it that much, but he's still appreciated because he is Daredevil. So that was great. Oh yeah, J.K. Simmons is back as well. J. Jonah Jameson, awesome as well. He didn't miss a beat. Spider-Man No Way Home. I need to rewatch this a couple times. It is absolutely worth your time. If you are a fan of Holland's Spider-Man, if you're a fan of Maguire's, if you're a fan of Garfield's, you will love this movie. Doesn't matter which Spider-Man you will like all of them by the end of this movie. So, yes, outstanding film. I have nothing to complain about, not really. Other than the few little things I mentioned, but it absolutely earns a 10 out of 10. The best Holland Spider-Man movie by far. I will do some more videos on this because this movie is so crammed full of content that I can't do one video. So I gotta do multiple. There's so much that happens in this. But I hope you enjoyed this. What did you think of No Way Home? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know what you think. I will continue to do Marvel related stuff. I'm going to try to review as many of the Marvel movies as I can in the future. Thanks for watching this. Stay tuned for more on this particular film. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and have a fantastic day.